Familiar foes meet again, this time with a Sugar Bowl semifinal berth on the line. Georgia already won once, 43-35 in October. Can Ole Miss flip the script? I'm your host, Nathan Johnston, alongside betting expert for Break the Huddle, Rooster's Cocky Picks. And Rooster, my opening question to you, is this rematch more about adjustments or about who survives chaos?
Well, I think this game's more about adjustments, Nate, because doesn't it seem like the end of the third quarter when Ole Miss was in Athens is kind of the moment that it just all clicked for Georgia and their offense, their defense, everything. Their entire season, that fourth quarter against Ole Miss was a season trajectory changing quarter. After that, they have been on an absolute warpath against anybody they faced. This was the Georgia team that we expected all season long, and this really hasn't been the same Georgia team since. They've just been manhandling anybody that comes in their way. And then we can also say the same for Ole Miss. Their season had a season trajectory changing decision about a month ago, which we all know what that was. We don't need to get into that too much. But that decision right there is something that changes a program. That changes how they function. That changes the way that things are handled. And then we saw this past weekend, he virtually just hired their entire offensive staff. They all walked in there, quote, Sunday Fun Day on LSU Twitter page and had every single one of Ole Miss's staffers wearing them white, purple, and yellow hoodies. What does that send to you? Ole Miss just beat Tulane for the biggest win in program history, and their coaches don't give two craps outside of the defensive side of the football.
Yeah. I mean, you said it all. You said it all right there. Listen, Ole Miss is going to show up to play. There's no doubt in my mind about it. Georgia comes into this one favored by 6.5, 7 on some boards. New Year's night, 8 p.m. kickoff in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the Sugar Bowl. It's going to be a great matchup. Let's talk about how these two teams got here. First off, the Georgia Bulldogs, 12-1 SEC champs, only lost to Alabama in regular season. They come back, they beat them in the SEC title game. First round bye after 28-7 SEC title win over Bama. Like I said, they looked dominant. They had Alabama wrapped around their finger from the start. It wasn't even close. Already beat Ole Miss once, but allowed 35 points. Now, I will also say this Georgia defense in December is a lot different than that Georgia defense in October. A lot different and a lot more experienced, a lot more confident. They're playing their best ball right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Ole Miss. 11-1. Their only loss to Georgia. Dominant 41-10 college football playoff first round win over Tulane. Some people think, okay, that's going to be a momentum builder for these guys. They've moved on from Lane Kiffin. They don't have to worry about him anymore. There's no whispers going on. Is he going to leave if we lose? Is he going to leave? All that's out the door. Now you can focus on this game and this game alone. I want to talk about playing with house money after coaching turnover. Like I said, say what you want about Lane Kiffin leaving. Yes, he is the identity of that team, but they have nothing to lose. They're playing with house money. Chambliss is playing great football. Curious to see if Lacey is going to be a go for this one. Obviously, Rooster, you said it before we came on the air. He's questionable, but we have optimism that he's going to be a full go, right? I think he's going to be a full go. Interim coach Pete Golding, can he hold on to that identity of this football team, rally, get the guys to rally, and show up and play the best football game that they've played all year? That's the question that I have heading into this matchup. My question for you, Rooster, does Georgia's bye help, or does Ole Miss's momentum matter more?
Well, Nate, I'd have to ask you, what momentum do they have? Let's not sit here and pretend like this Tulane game was wow, they figured it out without Lane Kiffin. It's Tulane. They beat them by 35 points earlier this year. Let's not sit here. Man, they really put up a dominant performance against Tulane. who also had their coach gone. I mean, he was there, but he really wasn't. We all know, like, what if anything, their momentum is going the complete opposite direction. They win their first playoff game and their coaches still leave. What does that tell you if you're Ole Miss? It shows that your coaches have no faith that this is a something that can be sustained over a period of time. While on the other hand, you have Georgia, who's been there year after year after year. It just has to be. I know that they're in the same game. Ole Miss's greatest season really ever, but that just has to be such a deflating feeling if you're Ole Miss, if you're an Ole Miss fan, knowing that you and Georgia are in the exact same opportunity, and it seems like both teams are on completely different trajectory paths. Georgia is continuing to ascend. They have only gotten better in every single game they played this year. Well, it seems like Ole Miss continues to just fall off as the season progresses.
Yeah, and in some ways, I think a tune-up game is probably good for teams like Ole Miss and Oregon. A lot of teams schedule cupcakes at the beginning of the year. For what reason? So they can get ready for the bigger games as they progress. In the case of Ole Miss, this two-night game was massive for them. And say what you want. Yes, they did dominate and kill them, but I think it was vital for Ole Miss to kind of regain that structure, regain that discipline of, okay, we're practicing for a game week rather than being on a bye and coming out flat footed and not knowing who they are. They know who they are. They know who they are. They know how they're going to approach this game. Not saying it's going to help them win, but I do think that it helps them in some capacity, especially after all the turnover that they've had in the last couple of weeks from their coaching staff. Let's talk about the quarterback breakdown for this matchup. Quarterback for Georgia Bulldogs, Gunnar Stockton, hometown hero. 23 passing touchdowns, 8 rushing touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. I've said it myself. Shout out to my dad. He's told me as well. I agree completely. When you allow Gunnar to play high school football, he plays his best ball. When you allow him to just use his feet and run and use his rushing game, it is his strength. His biggest strengths for this game, throwing on the run, thrives in chaos. I don't know how he does it, but he just finds a way to make a play. The X factor, converting broken plays into first downs. That's going to be big for this one. Can he throw efficiently against his defense, and can he use his legs in the right way to pick up the first down when it's needed? On the other side of the ball, Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss, an underdog story, Cinderella story in the making, wasn't even recruited out of high school, had to work his way up from D2 to starting quarterback at Ole Miss. Just an incredible story for this kid. Over 3,000 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions, 470 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns. His strengths, vertical aggression, and extending plays. So both of these quarterbacks have to be respected in the run game. It has to be respected, and both defenses are going to have to prepare accordingly. The question to you, Rooster, is which quarterback handles third and long better when the pocket collapses?
Well, Nate, I'm going to be honest. This quarterback matchup is probably the most even quarterback matchup in the first round of the playoffs. You have two teams who I don't think either team could ask for a more perfect quarterback for what they're trying to do. I mean, Gunnar Stockton, all he's asked to do is be the game manager and don't lose you the game. He has not lost Georgia the game once this year. All he has to do is just get it to the plethora of guys that Georgia has, and Georgia's just going to out-talent you on both sides of the football. While on the other hand, Trinidad Chambliss is somebody who's involved in the RPO game. He's involved in the play action. He's involved in everything. And he is probably the most crucial part of this offense, which Gunnar Stockton is a heavy part of this offense, but he has significantly more talent than that of Trinidad Chambliss on the offensive side of the football. But when it comes to these third and long scenarios, I'd have to side with Gunnar Stockton here simply because of the fact he has more athletes on his side of the ball he can distribute the ball to. And I believe he's shown he is more likely to not make the turnover. Trinidad Chambliss seems like he's somebody who, when it gets in a very tight crunch down situation, He's somebody who may try to force it in there. He may try to make a play when there's something that's not there, and it may cause an interception. It may cause an untimely turnover, and just that one play can be the difference in the entire outcome of the game. So for that reason, I'm going to take Gunnar Stockton, and when it comes down to crunch time, Gunnar Stockton I trust in more of a one play win the game for us situation.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a definite even quarterback matchup. Who is going to make less mistakes in this game? That's the biggest question mark between these two guys. Let's talk about the key players to watch. Obviously, for Georgia, everyone knows Zachariah Branch, elite yards after catch threat and dangerous in space. This guy's a do it all guy. And I'll tell you this, it is going to be fun to watch him and how Georgia utilizes him against this Ole Miss defense. They're going to have to find ways to get him open in space to make difference, to be the difference maker in this passing game. On the defensive side, linebacker C.J. Allen, he's a tone setter. Must limit Ole Miss's run game. Got to keep Lacey under 100 yards rushing if possible. Because if you can, you put the game on the shoulder of Trinidad Chambliss, and that makes it a completely different ball game. On Ole Miss side, got to get Lacey going early. 20 touchdowns, 850 yards after contact. That's insane. And then their edge rusher, Cam Franklin, pressure creator despite modest sack totals. What did I say earlier, Rooster? It doesn't have to be a high sack rate if you can get pressure on the quarterback and force him to make uncomfortable throws or get into pressure where he's getting sacked by another person. The question to you, Rooster, is this game decided by star power or by unsung trench or by unsung trench players?
I think this comes down to the unsung trench players, Nate, because Georgia is a team that they cycle in so many different players on every down that there's more than likely somebody you've never heard of that's in the game at any point in time. Like, that's just the truth. Georgia has so many athletes, and they rotate them so often, and they're so deep on both sides of the football where you have 4 and 5 stars who are coming off the bench as third stringers, and they're getting action in a game where other schools would be having these cats as playing as true freshmen. While Georgia has redshirt sophomores, redshirt juniors who are just waiting in line next in turn. And another thing that's scary is Georgia only has one senior on the defensive side of the football that's first or second string. That is unheard of for a team this far into the college football playoff. Dalen Everett is the only senior on this team. This is an opportunity for Georgia's trench heroes on the defensive side of the football to make their case for next season, show Kirby why they deserve to be starting, make an impact. I mean, Georgia has so many defensive linemen that it could be anybody's day to force a special turnover, a big-time sack here or there. Something will happen by one of these Georgia players that nobody has likely ever heard of that's going to shift the course of this game.
Yeah, we saw that last year in that 8 overtime game. Dan Jackson ends up being the hero. He wasn't a star-studded guy coming into the season. Everyone knew who he was, but he wasn't some 5-star prospect. He was an unsung hero. And I agree with you. There is going to be some playmakers in this game that you're like, huh? What? Who is this? You know, that's just the type of players that these two teams have. Let's talk about matchup numbers that matter. Ole Miss offense versus Georgia defense. Obviously, Ole Miss top 15 scoring offense. Georgia top 12 scoring defense. Key stat: Georgia ranks 108th in sacks. Can Chambliss stay clean? It's a big question to be answered on New Year's Day. Georgia offense versus Ole Miss defense. Well, Georgia protects the ball, 19th in turnover rate. Ole Miss forces turnovers poorly, 111th in FBS. Not great. My question to you, Rooster, is Georgia's discipline enough to neutralize Ole Miss's explosiveness?
I believe it is because, as I mentioned earlier in this game, earlier in this video, Gunnar Stockton is somebody that's not going to cost you the game. He may not be the sole reason you win the game, but he is not going to be the sole reason you lose the game. He is not going to make a stupid decision And on the other hand, I know you were mentioning Georgia's numbers on the defense side of the ball. They're 108th in sacks. I believe you said they're 12th in efficiency or points or something like that. But this isn't the same Georgia defense that played the first half of the year. All of these numbers, if you look at just the second half of the season, this Georgia defense is either the number 1 or number 2 defense in college football. I don't care what you say. Georgia's defense is not the same defense they had against Tennessee or against in the first 3 quarters of this Ole Miss game earlier this year. I believe this Georgia defense is the defense that you saw in the fourth quarter, and that's going to be the main factor in this game is Georgia's defense. Because if Georgia's defense plays like they did against Alabama, this game might be over in the first quarter, first half. And we all know that Georgia is a second-half team to begin with. So if Ole Miss is down early, this could get ugly very quick.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. Georgia's known as a second-half team, and if they can get out early, who knows how many points they can put up. And their defense, like I said, since October has improved heavily. Now, doesn't mean that Ole Miss can't put up points either, because they certainly could in October. I think they can find ways to put up points in this matchup as well. And that brings us to our final thoughts on this game. Win probability for Georgia, 55%. We obviously know they're favored by 6.5, 7.5 on some boards. These teams are statistically even. Success rate, efficiency, and explosiveness. They both have a great run game. They both have very good dual threat quarterbacks. They both have good defenses. I'd give the edge to Georgia late in the season, but early on, they were pretty evenly matched. Rooster, I'll turn it over to you. Big game for Georgia. Can they get over the hump of last year's awful loss against Notre Dame and make it to the semifinals? Or does Ole Miss ruin their season and send the Dogs home early back to Athens?
Well, Nate, as I said in our Miami, Ohio State video, if you watch it, this is a game of destiny. It seems like Carson Beck in this Georgia Bulldog rematch is something that is meant to be. And there is nothing in its way that's going to prevent it from happening. Georgia is just simply a different football team than they were the first half of this season. And I mean that in the most positive way possible. The complete 180 of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Georgia has continued to get stronger in every single game. And while Ole Miss is a very talented football team, they're a team built on transfers that just lost their coach that recruited them through the transfer portal. So you know that their allegiance is not to this university. Their allegiance is to that dollar sign. While you can't say the same for these Georgia Bulldogs. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs with the much more camaraderie team. They are much more built. They are much deeper. They're much more physical. They're much bigger. They're much stronger. They're much faster. They're much more everything. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs to move on to the semifinals.
Yeah, Rooster, this is going to be, in my opinion, one of the best matchups of the quarterfinals. Very evenly matched offensively. Defensively, like I said, you got to give the edge to Georgia a little bit. Which quarterback makes less mistakes? Which quarterback can deliver and finish in the red zone? That's a key to this game too. For my prediction, I don't think it can be any better said than in the wise words of Mr. Kinney. And it goes a little something like this. Rebels, Rebels, how'd you like to bite my ass? Give me the Georgia Bulldogs to beat the Ole Miss Rebels in the Sugar Bowl. Shout out, Mr. Kinney. Appreciate your support for this show. I think Georgia is just able to edge out over Ole Miss. I think Gunnar Stockton steps up in big moments. I think Kirby Smart, been here, done that. This is going to be an emotional game for Kirby. His father obviously passed away last year at this game. All the outside chaos that went on surrounding this game. This is Georgia's chance. A lot of momentum going into this one for Georgia. A lot to play for if you're Kirby Smart. And I think that's the difference in this one. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs. Don't have a score prediction, but give me the Georgia Bulldogs to win in this one. Let us know down in the comments what you think about this matchup between Georgia and Ole Miss. Drop your score prediction down below and be sure to hit that subscribe button and help us to get to 1,000 subs. Really appreciate all the support so far. We're so close to getting there. We'll see you next week for the semifinals. It's time to break the huddle.